What would you do if one night on a lonely road you found a young man fighting for his life? Would you walk away or risk everything to save him? She was just a poor girl with nothing but courage in her heart. He was the son of a powerful millionaire, used to money solving every problem. Their worlds should never have collided, but fate had other plans. What happened that night would not only save a life, but expose pride, test loyalty, and change a powerful man forever. Stay with us, because what comes next will leave you speechless. On a deserted country road outside of Charleston, South Carolina, a young woman named Emily Carter knelt beside a young man sprawled unconscious on the dusty ground. His head rested on her lap, his lips pale, his breath shallow. Nearby, a sleek black Cadillac sat half-parked across the roadside ditch, its door wide open like a silent witness. Emily clutched the man's phone with trembling hands, her voice breaking as she pleaded into the receiver. "Please, come quickly. Your son, he's not breathing." The voice on the other end was cold, sharp, impatient. Jonathan Harrington, a powerful real estate mogul, snapped back, "Who the hell are you, and why do you have my son's phone?" Emily swallowed hard, her throat dry. I found him here." He collapsed. "Please, he needs help." There was a heavy pause. Then Jonathan's voice returned, icy and controlled. "Give me the address and then disappear. You hear me? I don't want you near him when I arrive." Emily lowered the phone, her heart pounding. She was an orphan, raised by her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Miller, after losing her parents in a house fire. That morning, she had gone to gather herbs for Mrs. Miller's medicine when fate pushed her into this scene. She didn't know who the man was, but she wasn't about to leave him to die. The unconscious young man was Daniel Harrington, heir to his father's empire. Hours earlier, he had stormed out of the family mansion after another bitter argument. Daniel dreamed of being an architect, of creating homes for ordinary people, while Jonathan demanded he take over the family's ruthless real estate empire. The clash left Daniel with a sharp pain in his chest, and moments later, he collapsed on the roadside where Emily found him. Minutes dragged like hours until the distant growl of an engine pierced the silence. Emily looked up and saw a black Cadillac Escalade racing down the dirt road. Dust exploded into the air as the SUV screeched to a halt. Out stepped Jonathan Harrington in a perfectly tailored charcoal grey suit, his assistant Marcus trailing behind like a shadow. Jonathan's eyes scanned the scene, his son's luxury car skewed across the road, Daniel lying limp, and Emily kneeling beside him. But his gaze on her was void of gratitude, only irritation, as if she were an inconvenient stain in his meticulously polished world. "Marcus, handle this," Jonathan ordered curtly. The assistant and a driver moved swiftly, checking Daniel's pulse, lifting him with professional precision, and carrying him to the Escalade. Emily instinctively backed away, clutching her worn canvas bag to her chest. She watched as Marcus slipped Daniel's phone and wallet back into his pocket, as if to prove nothing had gone missing. To them, she was nothing but a potential thief. Then Jonathan turned toward her. His tall frame loomed above her, his cold blue eyes unblinking. Without a word of thanks, he pulled a thick stack of bills from his breast pocket, clamped by a golden money clip, and thrust it toward her. "Take this," he hissed. "Forget what you saw. My son, this place, you saw nothing." Emily's chest tightened. The money was more than she had ever seen in her life, enough to pay for Mrs. Miller's medicine for months. For one flickering second, temptation whispered to her, but shame and anger surged stronger. She raised her tear-filled eyes to his and shook her head firmly. "I don't want your money." Jonathan's brows furrowed, surprise flashing briefly before hardening again. "Don't be foolish. Everyone has a price. Take it, before I change my mind." Emily stepped back, her voice trembling but resolute. "Some things can't be bought." Her quiet defiance unsettled him. Jonathan's world was built on deals and power, on the belief that every soul could be bought. Yet here stood a girl from nothing refusing him. His jaw tightened, and without another word, he slid the money back into his pocket, turned, and climbed into the Escalade. The SUV roared to life and sped away, leaving Emily alone in a choking cloud of dust, clutching her bag with shaking hands. She felt small, humiliated, but also strangely proud. She had stood her ground. As the dust settled, something metallic slipped from her bag onto the dirt, a small silver pendant on a leather cord. Emily picked it up, realizing it must have fallen from Daniel's shirt when she tried to help him breathe. It was old, scratched, with a single engraved letter, E. She turned it over in her palm, sensing it wasn't just jewelry. It was a memory, a secret, and now it was in her hands. Daniel awoke to the faint beeping of machines and the sterile scent of antiseptic. His eyelids felt heavy, his head pounding as if someone had struck him. Slowly, shapes took form. The smooth white walls, the polished floors, the sunlight filtering in through tall windows. He was in a private clinic, the kind where patients were treated more like shareholders than human beings. In the leather armchair by the window sat his father, Jonathan Harrington. Even here, Jonathan wasn't a father tending to his sick son. He was a titan of industry, absorbed in reports on his tablet. Daniel's dry voice cracked the silence. "Dad, what happened? Why am I here?" Jonathan finally looked up, his expression unreadable. "You collapsed. The doctors say it was exhaustion, stress. Nothing serious. You'd need to rest, but tomorrow morning you'll be ready for the investor meeting. I'll have Marcus prepare the files." Daniel blinked, confused. Images flickered in his mind. Glaring sunlight, the sting of dust in his eyes, and a soft voice calling his name. He frowned. There was someone. A girl. She was with me. She called for help. Who was she? Jonathan's jaw tightened. He looked back at his tablet as though swatting away a nuisance. No one. Just some street beggar trying to make a scene. My security team handled it. Forget her. But Daniel shook his head weakly. No, she wasn't begging. I remember her voice. She sounded terrified for me, not for herself. Jonathan's lips curled into a cold, dismissive smirk. That's exactly what she wanted you to think. Don't be naive, Daniel. These people see opportunity where others see tragedy. You were vulnerable, and she saw dollar signs. That's all. The words sliced deeper than Jonathan intended, but they failed to erase the memory forming clearer in Daniel's mind. The feeling of his head resting on someone's lap, trembling hands brushing his hair back, the tremor in a stranger's voice as she whispered, "Please, breathe." Daniel fell silent, though his chest tightened with unease. His father's version of the truth was always polished, always neat, always final. But this time it didn't feel right. For the first time in his life, Daniel doubted his father's word. Meanwhile, on the other side of Charleston, Emily sat in her small, crooked wooden house, the pendant heavy in her palm. The house creaked with every breeze, the paint peeling off in strips, but it was home. In the back room, Mrs. Miller lay under thin blankets, her breath shallow, her coughing fits worse with each passing day. "Emily, dear, is that you?" the old woman rasped. Emily wiped her tears quickly and forced a smile before entering the room. "Yes, it's me. I found some wild chamomile today. I'll make tea. It should help your lungs tonight." But as she set the herbs on the table, her hand trembled. The silver pendant rolled across the cracked wood. Mrs. Miller noticed immediately. "What's that?" she asked softly. Emily picked it up, her gaze distant. "I think it belonged to the man I helped today. It must have fallen when I tried to move him." She didn't explain further, but inside, her thoughts spiraled. Why would a wealthy young man, clearly from a powerful family, wear something so simple, so unpolished? The engraving of the letter E felt personal, almost sacred. This wasn't a token of wealth. It was a memory. And now, fate had placed it in her care. For a fleeting moment, Emily thought of returning it. But then she remembered Jonathan Harrington's cold eyes, the way he had tried to shove money at her like she was dirt. Her stomach churned at the memory of his voice. You saw nothing. No, she wasn't ready to face that man again. Days passed. Daniel grew restless in the clinic. His father's security detail shadowed him everywhere, reporting his every movement. But Daniel's determination hardened. He needed to find her. the girl whose voice refused to leave his memory. One night, as the ward sank into silence, Daniel quietly called over the night nurse, Evelyn. She was young, soft-spoken, with weary eyes that had seen too much suffering. Daniel lowered his voice. "Evelyn, I need your help, please," she frowned. "Mr. Harrington, if you need more medication, I can—" "No, not medicine. Her name, the girl who found me. My father says she was nobody, but I know he's lying. Please, I need to thank her." Evelyn froze, glancing toward the door. "Your father forbade us to speak about her. If anyone finds out, I told you." "I know he's controlling this," Daniel interrupted, desperation in his voice. "But this is my life. She saved me. You think I can just forget that?" His voice cracked, eyes glassy with frustration. "Please. I've lived my entire life under his rules, doing what he wanted, studying what he wanted. For once, let me make my own choice." The weight of his words sank into Evelyn. She saw not a spoiled heir, but a lonely young man, suffocating under the shadow of his father. After a long pause, she whispered, "Her name is Emily Carter. She lives near the old mill road, on the outskirts." Daniel exhaled in relief, his chest loosening. Thank you. But Evelyn's face darkened. "Be careful. Your father doesn't trust her. He's already ordered surveillance on her house. If you go after her, you'll be walking into a storm." Daniel's jaws set. "Then let the storm come." In his glass tower downtown, Jonathan Harrington was already pulling strings. Marcus stood before him, laying out a file of neatly printed reports. "She's an orphan, sir. Lives in a run-down house with a sick neighbor. No debts, no criminal records. Locals say she's quiet, hard-working. Nothing unusual." Jonathan's eyes narrowed. "That is unusual. Everyone has a motive. Everyone wants something. If she hasn't asked yet, she's waiting." Marcus shifted uncomfortably, but stayed silent. Jonathan's paranoia had no cracks. "Put her under surveillance," Jonathan ordered coldly. "Every move she makes, every person she speaks to, I want to know what her angle is before she even tries it." For Jonathan, Emily Carter wasn't a savior, she was a threat. That evening, as Emily prepared broth for Mrs. Miller, she heard a faint knock at her door. Her heart skipped. Slowly she opened it and froze. A woman in a nurse's uniform stood there, her face kind but nervous. "Are you Emily?" the nurse asked gently. Emily hesitated. "Yes, who are you?" "My name is Evelyn. I work at the clinic where Daniel Harrington is recovering. He asked me to find you. He desperately wants to see you." Emily's breath caught. She shook her head quickly, fear flashing in her eyes. "No, I can't. His father. He hates me. He made that clear. If he finds out I'm anywhere near—" Evelyn raised her hand. "I know. I saw what he did. But listen, Daniel doesn't believe his father. He knows you saved him. And he's been clinging to that memory like it's the only thing keeping him alive. Please, if not for yourself, then for him." Emily's resolve wavered. The pendant weighed heavy in her pocket, as if reminding her of unfinished business. Slowly, she disappeared into the back room, then returned holding the silver locket. "I found this," she whispered. "It must belong to him. If you truly work for him, give it back. And tell him I'm glad he's alive." Evelyn took the pendant carefully, but when her eyes fell on the engraved E, her expression changed. Shock, recognition, awe. "You don't understand," she said, her voice urgent. "This isn't just his. This belonged to Daniel's mother. She died years ago. He's carried this ever since. If you return it yourself, it could change everything." Emily stared, frozen. She had tried to let go, but fate wasn't letting her. And in the shadows across the street, a man in a dark suit lit a cigarette, raising a camera to his eye. The shutter clicked softly. Emily Carter had just stepped deeper into Jonathan Harrington's world, and there would be no turning back. The night was heavy with humidity when Emily finally agreed to Evelyn's plan. Her hands trembled as she tied back her hair, slipped into her worn cardigan, and kissed Mrs. Miller's forehead. "I won't be long," she whispered, though her heart knew the risk. Mrs. Miller was half asleep, her frail body sinking into the mattress. unaware of the storm her young guardian was about to face. Evelyn drove them in her beat-up Honda Civic through side streets and alleys, avoiding cameras and patrols. The city lights faded as they reached the private clinic service entrance. Evelyn parked in the shadows and turned to Emily. "You'll have 10 minutes at most. If Jonathan or his men find out..." Emily swallowed hard. "I understand." Evelyn squeezed her hand. "He needs this. And maybe you do too." They slipped inside through a rusted metal door. The hallways smelled faintly of bleach and damp concrete. Evelyn led her down narrow service passages, up a staircase, then stopped at a quiet corner of the VIP wing. "His room is the third door." "I'll keep watch. Go." Emily's legs felt like stone as she approached the door. Her chest tightened, her palms damp. She eased it open and froze. Daniel was awake, sitting upright against the pillows, his face pale but his eyes alive. When he saw her, his lips parted in disbelief. "You—" His voice cracked. "You came." Emily stepped inside cautiously, clutching the pendant in her palm. "I only came to return this," she said softly, placing the silver locket on the table beside him. "It must mean something to you." Daniel's eyes widened. His trembling hand reached for it, and when his fingers brushed the metal, his composure shattered. Tears spilled as he clutched it to his chest. "This was my mother's," he whispered hoarsely. "She gave it to me the night she left us. I thought I'd lost it forever." Emily stood silent, her own chest aching at the rawness of his grief. She reached out instinctively, placing a hand on his arm. "You're not alone," she said gently, but before Daniel could respond, the door slammed open. Jonathan Harrington stood in the doorway, his presence like a storm cloud blotting out the light. His sharp eyes locked onto Emily's hand, resting on his son's arm. His voice was low, venomous. "I told you to stay away." Emily staggered back, her pulse hammering. "I was just..." "Enough!" Jonathan's voice cracked like thunder. He stepped forward, towering over her. "You think I don't see your game? You worm your way into my son's sympathy, wave around some trinket, and what then? Money? Influence? You won't get a cent." Emily's breath came fast. "I don't want your money," Jonathan sneered. "Everyone wants money. That's all there is." But then Daniel's voice cut through, stronger than ever before. "Stop, Father." Jonathan turned, stunned. His son had never spoken to him like this. "She saved my life," Daniel said, rising shakily to his feet, despite the monitors protesting with shrill beeps. "When my chest burned and my body gave out, she was the one calling for help, while you dismissed her as nothing." "She isn't nothing. She's the only reason I'm alive." Jonathan's jaw clenched, but Daniel pressed on, his voice rising with years of pent-up defiance. "You've built your empire on power and fear, but you can't scare her. You can't buy her. And that terrifies you, doesn't it? Because it reminds you there are things in this world you can't control." Jonathan froze, as if struck. For the first time in decades, he looked less like a titan and more like a man. Emily stood trembling, but her voice was steady. "Your son deserves to choose his own life, Mr. Harrington. Not one you've planned out of fear. Not one built on your rules." The room fell into heavy silence. Jonathan's gaze flickered from his son's defiant eyes to Emily's unwavering stance. Memories long buried surged. His late wife Eleanor's gentle voice, her pleas for him to soften, to spend more time with their boy. He had buried that voice under steel and ambition. Now it echoed in Emily's words. Jonathan's mask cracked. For a moment, just a moment, grief glimmered in his eyes. He turned away sharply, his voice husky. "Get out, both of you. Before I—" He faltered, unable to finish. Emily slipped toward the door, but Daniel's hand caught hers. "Stay," he whispered. "Please." Jonathan's fists tightened, his control unraveling. He stormed out, the door slamming shut behind him. The following days shifted everything. Jonathan withdrew into his office, his empire, but his heart was no longer unshaken stone. Marcus reported faithfully, but Jonathan barely listened. His mind replayed Daniel's words, the pendant glimmering in his son's hand, Emily's quiet strength. Meanwhile, Emily returned to her fragile world. Mrs. Miller's health declined sharply, her breathing shallow, her nights restless. Emily tried everything: herbal remedies, warm compresses, whispered prayers. But deep down she knew the truth. Medicine she couldn't afford was the only hope left. One night, Mrs. Miller clutched her hand. "Child, don't carry this burden alone. You've given me love and care. That's more than I could ask. Promise me you'll keep living when I'm gone." Tears slid down Emily's cheeks. "Don't talk like that, please. I can't lose you too." But fate was cruel. Days later, Mrs. Miller collapsed, her weak heart surrendering. Emily screamed for help, but the local hospital had nothing to offer. The doctors shook their heads. "Without surgery, there's nothing more we can do." Emily sank to the cold hospital floor, the world collapsing around her. And then Jonathan Harrington appeared. He was out of place in the crumbling hospital hallway, his tailored suit a stark contrast to peeling paint and flickering lights. Emily looked up, her eyes red with fury. "You," she spat, "here to watch me suffer? To offer money again like it fixes everything?" Jonathan's face was unreadable, but his voice was low, stripped of arrogance. "No, I'm here to make it right." Emily blinked. "My jet is waiting. The best cardiac surgeon in the country is on his way. Mrs. Miller will have her chance." Emily's breath caught, rage and disbelief twisting inside her. "Why? Why now?" Jonathan's gaze softened, shadows of guilt in his eyes. "Because once, a long time ago, I had someone who begged me to care more about family than business. I ignored her. I buried her memory, and it nearly cost me my son. I won't make the same mistake again." His voice broke on the last word. Emily, for the first time, saw not a monster, but a grieving man desperate for redemption. The surgery was long, brutal but successful. Mrs. Miller's life, once hanging by a thread, was given back. Emily wept beside her bedside, whispering thanks she never thought she'd say to Jonathan Harrington. But Jonathan didn't ask for gratitude. Instead, he came quietly days later with a different offering. Not money, not charity, but a folder embossed with the logo of the Harrington Foundation. Inside lay scholarship papers, a full ride to medical school. "You dream of becoming a doctor," he said simply. "Let me help you. Not to buy you, not to silence you, but because you remind me of someone who once saved me from myself." Emily's throat tightened. She looked at Daniel, who stood beside his father now, no longer cowed but strong, hopeful. He nodded encouragingly. Emily took the folder with trembling hands. For once, it didn't feel like a transaction. It felt like a beginning. 5 years later, the Harrington estate no longer echoed with cold silence. The gardens bloomed with laughter, dinners filled with warmth. Daniel had broken free from the weight of the empire, becoming an architect of affordable homes for struggling families. Emily, now Dr. Carter, was completing her residency under the same surgeon who had saved Mrs. Miller. Jonathan himself had changed. Still stern, still proud but human again. On a summer evening, they gathered under string lights in the garden. Mrs. Miller, healthy and radiant, laughed as Daniel teased her about her pie recipe. Emily smiled, leaning against Daniel, her eyes catching Jonathan's across the table. For the first time in years, Jonathan smiled back, not the cold smile of a mogul, but the tender smile of a father. He raised his glass. To family, however unlikely, however unexpected. To the ones who save us even when we don't deserve saving. The glasses clinked. And in the glow of the evening, amidst the laughter and love, Emily realized the dusty roadside where she once knelt beside a stranger had led her not just to saving a life, but to building one of her own.